and let's get going. So, today, Symbiota Support Group, June 2nd, 2025. We are going to go through a few announcements and then we'll hop into our topic of the day. And I'm hoping that we have a good amount of time at the end to just kind of have a community discussion about people's experiences with georeferencing because I know that there are so many things to talk about this and we could be here all day, but just have a little bit of time. Okay, so first, some announcements. Symbiota 3.3 is coming soon. You're like, what? I don't feel like I haven't even seen 3.2 fully yet. That's okay. 3.3 is actually kind of more under the hood adjustments. There's like a couple new features, but it's not going to be very many major changes. So it's hopefully not going to uh, change your guys' workflows all that much. The couple that I do want to point out is that you will have the ability to upload identifiers using the extended data import tools. So this is like if you have multiple catalog number or other catalog numbers, they used to be called other catalog numbers, and you basically want to populate that little table of additional identifiers on your occurrence display. Then you could actually have a completely different file that has catalog number and the identifier that you want to add and the tag name. So you could have a bunch of different ones for the same catalog number too. So I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that in Symbiota support group at some time in the future, but that's one of the features. Another important note is that the old image URL upload tool, so only a few people use this, but this is how you could upload a file that has catalog numbers and image URLs. That has been moved to a new section, and that's already in our documentation, and you should already be able to use that tool, but we're going to fully remove the old tool because it's broken. And then soon you'll also be able to download associations as a Darwin Core extension file called resource relationship. So that way you'll be able to see this specimen has a relationship with this other taxon or this resource or this iNaturalist link or something like that, instead of it all being squished into the main occurrences file. We'll do a lot more details about that in the future, but just wanted to make sure that people are aware that this is coming, but don't be like, oh no, I have to learn all these new things right now. It's going to be a relatively minor, major release. Another announcement is that we are going to be at Botany. Lindsay and I will be, and I think Jen as well. So come see us at Botany. It's in Palm Springs this year. And we will have a booth so you can stop by our table, ask us all your questions, bring your laptop, come in the back and be like, help me fix my data. We'll be there. Another important note is that the Symbiota support group is, or I should have said hub, sorry, is conducting a sustainability sprint this summer, and that's likely going to slow help desk responses. So I know sometimes we respond within like 5 minutes. That might be a bad habit, like sanity-wise, because it might take a couple weeks before you get responses in, especially this summer. So don't feel like you need to send us a follow-up email if you haven't heard in 4 days. Just like be patient. We'll get to all of your tickets as they come up. And thank you in advance for your patience. We are hoping to keep our the Symbiota whole communities going and the Symbiota code going by writing some grants, getting some money, and keeping this moving. So that's mostly what our sustainability sprint is going to be focused on. And related to that, we actually have a Donate to Symbiota Support Hub page now, and Lindsay will put that link in the chat. And I'm actually going to go to it so that I can show you what it looks like. It takes you to the University of Kansas endowment page, so don't get thrown off when you see that. That's because we are based at the University of Kansas Biodiversity Institute, and you can give any sort of size gift. And right here, you can give us some information, and we really appreciate any donations that you can make, because that keeps our portals going, especially if like you were on a grant in the past and now you're like, oh, they just keep on answering my questions and it's 7 years later, like we can still, if you have a way to give, we would appreciate any of that. So thanks in advance. You guys are awesome in your support. Even if you don't have money, you guys are awesome. Okay, I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions on any of those announcements before we move on.
I do have a quick question.
Yep.
There at some point, I'm sorry, I know that this might be off topic because I'm not 100% sure about this, but I don't know who else to ask. I heard that, so I think I was supposed to be having a big conference in DC in person. Is that still happening or did it get cut?
No, it has been postponed to next year.
Okay, so it just got postponed. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it didn't get cut completely. Okay.
I can't remember, and maybe Lindsay, you can correct me. I can't remember if it's the one that's postponed and now it's going to be in May or if it's going to be September. Well, it can't be September of next year because they end at the end of August. So I think it's like going to be earlier in the year, but next year.
Okay.
Think it was maybe March, but I don't think anything's been officially announced. So I would consider that a very tentative date and just like stay tuned for an official announcement.
Consider that hearsay.
No, that's totally fine. I just also, with conferences, I like to let people know ahead of time so I can they can approve travel and stuff. And so that's why I was
Totally.
didn't know what happened with it. But okay,
Yeah,
that
good
makes sense.
question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Hey, Katie,
Uh-huh.
do you know anything about, as far as the donations go, how much goes directly to Symbiota versus how much the greedy administrators take and put in their pockets?
I don't know for certain, but I think it goes all into endowment. So
Okay.
it goes directly to Symbiota, as far as I know.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
All of our
by
fundraising here,
virtue,
they get a significant chunk of change that
mm,
comes in, even through donations that we don't ever see. So just
hmm.
curious. Thank you.
Christy.
Hi, I have never had my institution contribute to Symbiota, like embarrassingly. And as I explained to Lindsay, if I tell them it would be nice if we did that, it would be a good faith thing to do, they'd say, that sounds lovely, and we will not be doing that. So I don't think I can allocate any part of my budget unless there's some sort of like mandate or strongly suggested, or, I need some more strongly worded something from you or from Symbiota that makes it seem like this is your obligation. So I kind of need that, and I would want that so that I could take it
Yeah.
to my administrators, but we can talk about that offline too. I would like to have my institution support because I'm so reliant on it. But um, I don't have any backing to donate unless I can prove that I have to.
Thank you so much for that comment. That's an excellent point. We know that, these institutions, collections, they can't always make a donation. That's not like a thing that you're allowed to do. We also have the ability to invoice. So if you have a certain like percentage that you want to support the portal, we can send you an invoice with that percentage. You can be like, hey, give me the percentage that is going to be $200. And so we can send that invoice and then you can just pay us through that invoice. And Allison asked in the chat, will there be a mechanism to support the portals through line items and grants and awards? That's already possible. You could do it in two ways. You can have us be like a sub-award or a contractor on your grant. So the sub-award would be like we are, co-developing something with you, and we get actually like we submit part of the grant ourselves. Or you could just be like, no, we're going to use this portal and we're going to put 1,000 pieces of data in there, so therefore we need to pay for this much maintenance of the portal. It's going to be $2,000. Great. Then we can invoice you for that $2,000 through our invoicing system too.
I have a question. This is for Symbiota, this support hub thing, and this has nothing to do with support for Arizona State hosting all the software and the images, right? Is that true? What's the relationship?
They're the same. So the Symbiota
Okay,
support group is
okay,
those who are hosting the portals, and we are providing the support.
okay. So if we donate money to that KU thing, that also helps the engineers at the portals and
Yeah,
in
because those
same
people
group.
are on our team. Those portals may at the moment be on ASU servers, but it is possible they will be moved to KU servers. We have access to those because we are ASU affiliates still. So we are still doing the management of the servers regardless of where they are.
Okay.
Jen, you have any comments on this?
No, my internet died at my university. I need to support
Oh,
that so
poor
that I
timing.
like Zoom normally.
Well, we really appreciate your guys' enthusiasm. We all are trying to do our best to make sure that we keep these portals moving for us all moving forward. So, okay, then let's jump back to our topic of the day, which is georeferencing tools. So, what that's going to look like for us today is we're going to talk very briefly about what is georeferencing. We're going to talk about the georeferencing tools that are available in Symbiota portals, and then I'm going to point you to some georeferencing resources. And like I said at the beginning, we'll have a little bit of time for community discussion about what people have learned, tips, tricks, challenges, things relating to georeferencing. I'm not going to talk about how to georeference today because that would take much more time than we have. And everyone has their different protocols, especially if you use a different, or if you work with a different taxonomic group. Some, like marine folks will pay attention to different fields than terrestrial folks, plants versus animals. So we'll just point to you to the tools and to some protocols that have already been developed, and then you guys can work from there. Okay, so I'm going to talk, or rather, past self is going to tell you about what is georeferencing. And I say that because I'm just going to play part of this video. This is from an introduction to georeferencing in CCH2 course that we'll put a link to in the chat, just to get us oriented to georeferencing. And I think I have to stop share so that I can then share my sound. Okay. So there's that. And then let me open up a new window here.
It's time to play family.
Oh, let me. Okay. Didn't want to show other people's commercials on Symbiota support group. Okay, here we are. I'm going to play it, and then I want you to give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
When an herbarium specimen is collected, the collector usually records where they found the specimen. This information is stored on the specimen label with most of the other collection data. Sometimes the specimen label includes latitude and longitude coordinates, but because specimens have been collected over the past couple hundred years, this is not always the case. As a result, many specimens have location data, but we aren't able to place that specimen's location on a map or use it for other computerized analyses. That's where the process of georeferencing comes in. Georeferencing is assigning a decimal latitude and longitude, along with some estimation of the uncertainty of that assignment, to a given location described by textual information. You can think of it as putting a dot on the map to indicate where that specimen was collected. For example, if we have a specimen label that says Calaveras Reservoir, we'd find Calaveras Reservoir on a map, place a point where that specimen could have reasonably been located, and assign an uncertainty radius that encompasses the region where that specimen could have been located, given the precision of the locality data given on the specimen label. This process can get a little complicated, but we'll explain it more in detail in Module 3.
I'm not going to show the whole thing because you can go do that on your own time. But I just wanted to let that very boxed in short explanation speak for georeferencing. So it's just putting a dot on the map based on some textual information. And that makes it sound like it's easy, and we all know that it's not quite that easy. But there are lots of tools that are there to make it a little bit easier for you in Symbiota portals. So I'm going to talk about these different tools. We have our per specimen tools first, and so that's what I'll show right now. And what I mean by per specimen is these are the tools that show up in the occurrence editor, so the main data entry page when you're looking at a specimen. So I'm going into my data editor control panel, and as a reminder, the way you get there is to go to my profile, occurrence management, then go to the name of the collection that you're managing, go to edit existing occurrence records, and then you can choose from your list of specimens to look at which one you want to work on. So the per specimen tools are in this locality box. Let me zoom in for you all. And there's all the textual information, and that's transcribed from your specimen labels. And there may or may not be coordinates on your specimen labels. And if there are coordinates, you can put them in this verbatim coordinates field here. And you can try to have the portal parse that into latitude and longitude, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. You can also, if you click this little F button, it opens up some new tools for different formats. That's why it's F, formats. So this is if you have it in decimal degrees, if you have UTMs, or if you have township range section. Those formats are supported here. If you enter it into decimal degrees or UTMs, it's going to try to automatically do that conversion for you, and it's pretty successful. But if you do township range section, it will not automatically do that conversion because that's a little bit more complicated of a process. If you put in township range and section, you can have GEOLocate, which is one of the built-in georeferencing tools, try to look for that township range section for you. So I'll show you GEOLocate first. That's this little fish surrounding a globe icon. That's because GEOLocate was first developed for some fish collections. Fun trivia. Okay, and this is GEOLocate. GEOLocate is based out of Yale University, developed by Nelson Rios and his team. And we basically just have a plugin of GEOLocate. We get information from GEOLocate to show this window for you. And it takes your locality information, including the country, state, county, and the locality. So here's that country, state, county, and locality. And it tries to georeference it based on comparing these values to a gazetteer. A gazetteer just means like a list of all these places that have coordinates. So, and it does some smart things, like it tries to put the point like east or west or north or south of that locality, depending on what it reads. So in this case, if I click on the button, it says, let's see, this is saying, hey, I read that this is a distance south of Tehachapi. So it was supposed to be 4 to 5 miles south of Tehachapi. So I put this, and I don't know whether it chose 4 or 5, probably 5 miles south of Tehachapi, and I placed my dot there. These are not meant to be like, all right, looks good, save, leave. Generally, you want to do some editing in here, so you can just drag things around. You usually want to edit the uncertainty. And so the uncertainty is like your confidence intervals, basically. You're saying like, I am 99% confident that it's somewhere within this bubble. And for that reason, sometimes your confidence is like pretty low. So you have a really big error radius. But if you have really precise locality descriptions, you can have small error radii that you just edit using this little handle here. So there are also a couple of other features in here, including you can draw a polygon. So that's particularly useful if they're like along a road or along a stream or within this like weirdly shaped lake. So that can help you give a more precise error polygon. You can use a little place marker. You can measure distances between things. I'm just clicking, and then once I'm done, I can double click.
Katie, do
So
you
that
see that
helps you.
Allison says that the little pin doesn't work for her? It never pins to the point I move it to. What am I doing wrong? I assume
The
that's in
pin
geolocate.
here doesn't work for me. It never pins to the point I move to. What am I doing wrong? So you're saying like pin here, that doesn't work for you? So pin here
Yeah.
corresponds to like it just makes a little pin for you. At least it used to. It made a little yellow pin there that you could refer to in the future, but maybe that's not working anymore. I don't know. If you want to like use a marker, it just has to be green. You don't have to pin it. You just have to have the green one as your um the one that's selected.
Katie, sorry to get in the weeds about this, but pinning it mean it's saving that location's information to the gazetteer for future?
No. Pinning just means it saves it locally to your cookies so that
Okay.
you'll be able to find that pin later in the future. And
Got it.
yes, Allison, it will save the green point. So whatever you have here, if you then click Save to your application, that's what it's going to save to your record. And then Chilla asked, will the township range section be on a polygon layer or will it just be a centroid? I don't really know, but my understanding is that when you have a township range section, it places it in the centroid of the section. So if you go to a USGS topo map, and I did just kind of a little bit of wizardry there, but if you go up to the plus sign, there are a bunch of different layers you can use to view. I love the USGS topo map. It has so many like names on it that are super helpful. But if you had township range section and it was properly formatted, it would land that point right in the middle of the section and it would make the error radius automatically something like this. It does not make a perfect little square. It just makes an error radius. Fun fact though, I found out that it automatically gives it an error radius of 969, which is actually a little bit too small. It should be 1140. That's probably something I should report to Nelson, but fun fact. I usually just like round it to 1,000 because 1140 seems weirdly specific. Or 1,200 actually might be a safer bet there. Okay, so that is GeoLocate. It has lots of really great features. The other one that's kind of simple is if you just click this map coordinates, it's a globe icon. It's right next to the GeoLocate icon, and that takes you to the OpenStreetMap or Leaflet map. This used to be Google Maps, but they charge us, so we're doing Leaflet these days. And this one is a little bit less robust. One thing that people have told me is that if you go to a record that is does not have a coordinate, and this is a little bit confusing, that if you open this map coordinates right here, it immediately wants you to put a point on here. It doesn't allow you to like move as nicely. It doesn't give you the hand icon. So my recommendation is just like put that point somewhere and then move around, and then you could put the point somewhere else. You just go over to this top left corner, say draw a marker, you place the point, and the only way to adjust the error radius here is to put in a number. So kind of for that reason, it's usually easiest if you use GeoLocate, but you can also use different layers here. There's only a few layers available right now. But just so you know that that is also available to you. Chilla asks, where do you put, let's see, but details under TRS is where you put things like Northwest 1/4. Yeah, so back here in where you can enter township range section, if you have a quarter or a 16th or a half, you would put that information in the details. But important point, GeoLocate does not read your details. It doesn't know how to get even further smaller than a section. So you would have to go into GeoLocate, move that point to the correct quarter or 16th, and then adjust your error radius accordingly. Which is good to do because then you have a pretty small error radius. Like that's a good tight georeference, but it is a little bit more work. Okay, so those are the per specimen tools. And then these other three tools are kind of just iterations of those tools. So if I go back to my collection management, then I'm going to talk about batch georeferencing. So batch georeferencing is also in your data editor control panel. It is right here under batch georeference specimens. If I click that, then it's going to show me an interface of basically all of the ungeoreferenced localities in my whole collection. No, only the not currently georeferenced ones. So there's no lat long currently with that specimen record. From here, you can georeference using either of the two tools that we already talked about. If you go up to the right-hand corner here, you can georeference with GEOLocate, and you can georeference using OpenStreetMap, using this little globe icon here. So to do this, you just select a record that you want to georeference, and then you select which tool you want to georeference it for. Why is this called batch georeferencing? Because you can select multiple records that may have very similar locality information and georeference them all at the same time. They're going to get the same lat long, error, notes, georeferenced by all those things. So for example, like if I go down here, I see that both of these are 4 miles east of Painted Cave Road at 2.3 miles from junction with the pass. They're just like slightly different in their spelling and their punctuation. So I could hold my control button, probably the command button on a Mac, and then I can just select all the records that I want to georeference at one time. And this little brackets here that tells me that that's doing 4 at one time. That's 2. So I'm going to georeference a total of 7 with this one georeference. I open up my GeoLocate, and then I georeference it here. I can update any of the metadata fields that I want to, update coordinates, and then it will batch georeference all the specimens at once. There is a query form here so that you're georeferencing only one section at a time if you want, but it's pretty limited. You can only limit it to countries, states, counties, municipalities, and processing statuses. You can also do locality terms. So if I wanted to be like, I wonder if anyone else is talking about Painted Cave Road, then I could generate list. And then it's like, oh, look, there's quite a few more that have that same exact locality, so I could georeference those at the same time. When you look at these drop-down lists, you'll be like, why is there so much garbage in here? That's because it's not taking this information from the geographic thesaurus. It's taking it from verbatim values that exist in people's county fields. So it just means that there is some garbage in your portal. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're in your specific collection, but that might be why, if you find any confusion there, that would be why that is. Let me open the chat to see if there's any more questions. Okay, Megan got her question answered. Okay, then cross-collection batch georeferencing looks very similar to this. So notice that I'm just batch georeferencing in my one collection here. If I have access to multiple collections, administrator access, I think, or also editor access. So I go to my profile, occurrence management, and I see multiple collections here. Then I have the ability to scroll a little bit further down to this miscellaneous tools area and go cross collection georeferencing tool. This might be a little bit slower than your single georeferencing tool because it's looking in the multiple collections that you're georeferencing at one time. But let's say I just wanted to do these two. And let's also look for painted cave. And I may or may not find specimens that belong to both collections, but they will be included in these counts. And so I could georeference them all at one time. So if you're the administrator of several collections, you can do that very efficiently through this interface. And it shows you right here, look, you're georeferencing for 2 collections right here. And you can even add them from here. I didn't know that existed, but you could add more. That's probably only if you're the administrator of those collections then.
Yeah, I don't see it. I'm an editor on another one, but I don't see that.
That must only be available if you're an admin. Okay, next I'm going to talk to you about the collaborative georeferencing tool. And this is a little bit more on the complicated side, but if I go click on this and then send this to you guys all in the chat. If I can find my Zoom controls. There you are. Okay, so collaborative georeferencing, also known as COGI, is also run out of Yale University by the same people who make GEOLocate. And it is a place where you can send data sets or upload data sets as CSVs in one central location, georeference them all, and then get the data back out. So if you had friends, colleagues who manage in some other database and don't have it in Symbiota, they could put that data into COGI, you could put your data into COGI, and then you'd be able to georeference kind of more, it's like batch georeferencing across multiple different data sets, even if they don't live in the same Symbiota portal. I'm not going to go into extreme detail about this because there's some good resources out there where you can learn more, but I will show you how this relates to Symbiota portals because you can link your data to the collaborative georeferencing platform dynamically, meaning as soon as an edit happens in COGI, it's immediately in your Symbiota portal, which is really nice because then you don't have this like, I put a data set into this georeferencing platform and then I got it back a year later and then half of the stuff was already georeferenced and I had to decide which one to keep. No, you can send your data straight to COGI. As it gets created, it pulls it back into your Symbiota portal. So where you can manage that is you must be an administrator. It's under the processing toolbox. And it will be in the very right side called GEOLocate COGI. And I believe it is not configured in all portals. So if you don't see it, then that would be why. But you can ask to get it configured. So if I click GEOLocate COGI, it then allows me to select a subset of the data that I want to send dynamically to COGI. By default, it's going to say, I think you want the ones that aren't georeferenced, right? So decimal latitude is null. But then you could say, oh, just do all the ones from this family or this location or something like that. And then you have to be logged into COGI for this to work. Oh, but I don't remember my password, so that's not going to work. But what it would do is give you a number of records. So let's say I just want to do country is Namibia. Pretty sure we have Namibian collections. Yes, so I want to send all my Namibian collections. Then it would give you a list of different data sets that you could push that copy to. Then you push the data to GEOLocate COGI, and then it will show up in a COGI dashboard. Again, more details I could go in, but the basic idea is that you have a potential external tool where you could dynamically push your Symbiota data to, and it can be georeferenced in concert with a bunch of other folks' data. This has been super useful for the Eastern Seaboard TCN. They're doing a lot of their stuff. I think they're doing most of their georeferencing in Koji. The Global Bryophytes and Lichens Consortium or Thematic Collections Network has done a lot in Koji as well. So it's a nice thing to consider if you're doing any sort of collaborative georeferencing projects in the future.
Is there a filter, like, do you like view it first to accept it, obviously, when it comes back? Or it automatically just gets pushed there?
It's a good question.
Is all the QA done within Koji, or is it after the fact?
There is no filtering necessarily, like whatever gets done there gets brought into Symbiota. But you will be able to, and I'll share my screen and show this. You have a way of looking at your data edits and determining which ones came from Koji, so you could review those ones. So if I go into my review verify occurrence edits, we've made a lot of edits, so it might take a little while to load. But you have the ability to check for internal versus external editing source. So internal means this came from my Symbiota portal. But if I change this to external, I could see any edits that came from Koji or another external thing. So then this is the information that came from that. Okay. Any questions about any of that? What I'm going to share with you now is just going to be a bunch of links. So I'll let you guys come up with your questions as I do this. And there are many more that I could have linked here. And in fact, many of these pages have a lot of links that point you to more resources. But this is kind of like one of the best georeferencing guides you can use. In my opinion, this is like the biodiversity data standards recommended georeferencing. This training course was developed based on this guide. So these are hopefully largely in sync, but this is more of a step-by-step, click on this, go here. And there's like a protocol, there are training videos. And so here's the protocol, at least for this particular project. Protocols, as I mentioned, might differ depending on your needs. There is a Koji training video as well, so you have access to that. Those are also linked in this georeferencing and Koji training course. And then there are a bunch more that are linked on this page. Lots of georeferencing resources. CalTopo is amazing. USGS can give you their maps. There's old maps, other georeferencing guides, and then also the Global Bryophytes and Lichens group has a georeferencing page with lots of useful resources. So there's plenty of places to figure things out. But I know it can be a little daunting to look at them all and be like, oh my goodness, where do I start? Let's see. Megan asks, is there an advantage of using Koji over GEOLocate? It just depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to batch edit a lot of, or batch georeference a lot of things, usually across different collections? Then you probably want to do that in Koji. Another use of Koji that I've done is I've pushed a copy of a subset of the data to Koji because I didn't want to give a bunch of students like direct access to CCH2. I just gave them access to Koji because then they could only edit the georeference data. They couldn't edit any of the other data. So that's another use. But the interface using GEOLocate, like GeoLocate and Koji are kind of the same thing. It's just like a little bit different flavor. And Megan says, if a researcher wants some record information, but they need them georeferenced, but they'll do it, could you download the CSV, send it to them, and they can work on Koji with them rather than giving them, yeah, exactly. So you could have them work in Koji in this third-party platform instead of having direct access to all the fields of your data. Congratulations, UCR, just completing the georeferencing of all your USA specimens. That's a lot of work. You have a big collection.
Thank you.
And then Beth asks, are you going to be able to put back the section quizzes that came after the videos in your CCH2 training course page? Yeah, there used to be quizzes after each video, but then the quiz plugin like died. And so then there were ads and that was bad. So I removed those, but I don't actually have like the quiz text anywhere. So I would have to make some new quiz ideas. But thank you for that question, Beth. I'm glad that somebody enjoyed the quizzes.
Yeah, no biggie. I just want to also just say this, that was really well done. And I went and looked at all the different sources, the GBIF thing, and I read it, and it was huge, humongous. And then you did it, and then they obviously had to do a smaller one to make it better, like kind of, and then, but yours is so much better. Like, it's just like you made it, it's still good. It's based on all this stuff. And the students loved it. Like people taking GIS class, it was so good that you back it up with all those references because they're impressed with the academic rigor. I go, people with PhDs in geography, contributed to this thing, and then this is this nice training thing, and I present it that way. And then the little printout that you have, like the color, the 10-page color thing, I actually bothered to print it out and make little booklets, and that's so well done. I just wanted to just encourage everybody to use that with students. I thought it was amazing.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Beth. I'm so
Yeah.
glad it was helpful
I'm
beyond
a
the
big
whole
fan,
project. Yeah.
here.
And I think what she's referring to as the quick guide is there is a smaller illustrated georeferencing guide here. And so this is a little booklet. Well, let's look at the other version. Oops. That has some examples for each type because like one of the main important points, at least when you're teaching students, is to help them distinguish the different types of georeferencing issues they're going to run into. So like we have a named place, a bounded area. And so this gives some information about like what is a bounded area? How do you make an error radius for a bounded area? Things like that. So that is also on this georeferencing protocols and guides link that is linked in the chat.
And I'll just say another thing about that because Beth, I also love them. And Katie, I don't know if you know this, but I still give them to every student that comes through the herbarium. That page was our digitization TCN website for California. And we produced all these materials. And I feel like all the TCNs like produced great materials relevant to their project. And I'm always frustrated that they are not centralized in one spot and that you can't be like, okay, well, where do you go for your like imaging protocols or your georeferencing protocols? Like they're just sort of like you would never find that really if you did a Google search. Like you just have to know about it.
Megan notes that there's the Spinach Wiki, the Society for the Preservation of Natural History Collections Wiki. It's not super well populated in terms of digitization yet, but if you want to help, there's a best practices committee who is doing that. And then I know iDigBio is actually starting a knowledge base, so a central hub where they're connecting all of the protocols, but they're not actually storing the protocols on their own site/servers. So this website needs to continue to exist if that knowledge base is going to work. Okay, so let's open it up to questions, comments. What have people found is useful for them? What questions do they still have about georeferencing? What challenges do you still have about georeferencing? Besides the specimens that just say Los Angeles, like we know that those are impossible. Although you could say, well, Los Angeles in 1914 was actually only about this big compared to being that big, but I digress.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I always have questions.
is it useful, or I think I might have asked this before, but how low before you mark it as closed or stage 3 rather than, so I mean, these are just the processes I use, rather than georeferencing it. So like if I have something down to just the county in New Jersey, should I put a centroid point and make it the whole county? Because we want to make those visible on that map on the front ends, right?
Yeah, that's a huge question. Then everyone seems to have a different opinion. My personal opinion is that county centroids are fine if that is as far as you can like go, possibly. I think that it's a little bit sloppy to just be like, batch georeference everything to counties, and that's as much as we're doing. Like maybe that's an okay process for a time, but it makes it kind of hard to like figure out whether something can be georeferenced even further in the future. Um, and it also depends on your taxon. Like if you're talking about a bird or a mushroom, like they can move or they take up a huge, a mushroom can take up a huge amount of space that we don't even know about. So that error radius might be larger and, an animal can move. So that radius can be larger and still be useful for analyses. It kind of depends on the end user. But yeah. Brad, you have a comment.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. Okay. Yeah, so the talk, I forget whose talk it was at Spinach just last couple days ago here. They were saying to not do country or county centroids because those are so easily generated if you need them on the user end that it would cause less confusion than, to not have them than the confusion it causes to actually have them. It is like, it's all about what you're going to use it for. So I think that's one of the kind of hard things about these georeferencing things is that there's not really like, okay, this set of specimens use these rules for georeferencing, while these use something else. You just get a point and maybe an error radius, maybe not, maybe a data, maybe not, and all that has to kind of get figured out on the user end. So I
Yeah.
I can see, having a point so you can see it on a map, but I can see how that would cause problems for a county centroid. So it's like you just really have
Yeah.
to think it when you're using it, you really have to be careful about cleaning it, I think.
And there's some notes in the chat that are kind of going back and forth about this too. It's like, well, it won't show up on a map unless you georeference it. So is it better to just like have it on a map? But I think what you're mentioning also underscores the importance of having an error radius and people understanding how to use an error radius. But that might be like if you can put an error radius on all your points, that's going to help things significantly. Chilla.
Well, I mean, on that note, I was going to say it's also about the users knowing how to use the data because I'm on the pro adding adding the centroid side but to be fair, it's because I know when I download data, I can exclude specimens that have really high uncertainty. So it's a matter of um, having the knowledge base on both sides of the people who are downloading the data, being aware of that, and the people who are uploading it. Um, and also, I prefer polygons. I just don't know because sometimes like you have a county and it's, where do you put the centroid and then also then you put the uncertainty and then it like kind of sort of overlaps. But I don't know how long it will take for polygons to show up or if that's in the plans for the future or are okay, so it is. That makes
Oh,
sense.
sorry, I was
Oh,
commenting that I was nodding at something in the chat. No, that is not on our roadmap right now.
okay.
Like, there's not even error radii shown on the map quite yet. So, like, you can look at
Okay.
an individual specimen, but if you like looked at a big map of a distribution, then you're not going to see error radii or polygons.
Okay.
Wait, you can see them now. You can. That was where the changes. Sorry. I'll
When
type
you're
this. I don't
when
want to
you're on
interrupt.
the public search or
Oh, not the public search, but when you do,
Oh, okay.
this is related to my question. I'll wait my turn.
Let's see. I mean, I think you're up. So your question is, can I ask a question about how map search is given Symbiota updates?
Yeah, so Symbiota in the last update, I see, so what we have on ours is a cool website where you have it. I love how you do the map search and we search for a certain collector and we show this is where they collected stuff and it's updated all the time. And what I couldn't do, I tried to get a student to figure out how to have the error radius show up, but now they do. So with a new correction, yay, that's great. What I don't like is that automatically shows a key has colors for each taxon. I just want dots that people can pick. Like they have this like multicolored key for each taxon that this one collector has collected in this flora. So what am I doing wrong? Or is this just the way it is now? That's my question.
I think it's always, well, maybe it has not always been that way. You've always had the ability to change the color based off of the taxon. You can also change the color based on the collection from which it's coming if you go to the collections tab. But I think that it's automatically colored either one of those two ways.
We used to have a picture just had all the dots. Like maybe is it by, so I just need to do by collection? Because it was just
Maybe. I don't
a
know.
bunch of
Are
nice
you?
little white dots like within this one county, and you could see, oh, they collected here, they collected there. But now they're
Mm-hmm.
all different color dots, and it has this
Mm-hmm.
key of all the taxa. So
Mm-hmm.
that I guess try to do it. I kept trying, and it was a really nice embed on a web page that I did for people.
Mm. I know that you can adjust the dots. I don't think this really helps what you're talking about, but just it's nice to note that you can, if you do a search, you can go into this list and you can color them to whatever you want. But of course, you'd have to do that for every taxon. So if you have this huge collection, it's not super useful. But you could also go to collections and you could auto color them that way. I don't, again, know if either of those is what you're looking for, but those are just some
Yeah, it was one
options.
collector and a flora. Maybe the collector. Anyway, it doesn't, we kept trying different things, but I do like that you can see the error radius in those maps now. That's really great because it gives people a better sense of like, who was it? Someone was talking about, being able to look, that knows that the error radius is a thing, so it makes it more obvious.
I don't actually know what you're talking about. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
see the
So when
error
you go,
radius.
yeah, what's this website we have? So we did like all these people collected stuff. So where's the William Mary Herbarium? So I link to that site and I have a picture, a screen capture or whatever of that map. And then you can copy the URL, the link to it. But if you go back to your search, so if you, because I can't share my
Mm-hmm.
screen.
Yeah.
So do a search for a certain collector in a certain county.
Katie, I think if you hit reset sim biology.
Biology.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a symbology. I played with that and I was unsuccessful and
Well, mine cleared all the color and gave me just little dots.
oh, okay, cool.
Oh yeah, that would be nice to know. Although I did select the most collected county for David King.
And it
Not
broke
always.
it.
But
It
you have
broke.
all these different collectors. Oh no, one collector. I
I have
see.
one collector. Yeah.
Another, well, while searching, I will, since I'm not muted. Um, I want to say what I started doing in the remarks, since what's really cool, like, I don't know if everybody can do this, for Cernac, we see other people's georeference stuff and you can just take it. Especially if there's duplicates and someone else has done it. And so we take the work, but I really wanted to give credit to people, blame or credit for their georeferencing. So I write in the remarks, I just started a protocol and I see some other people have actually adopted my wording. So I just say Willie Lat Long from NCU duplicate. That way, because no one ever knows. I see the username for whoever's in the Symbio portal, but I have no idea who that is, and also I have no idea what collection they're from. So I write that in there, and I think that would be a good thing to somehow encourage other people, just to give you're citing it. It can be useful or not. Like you go, oh, I love that. So if I see Carol Ann McCormick did it, I'm like, perfect, I can do that. But people can know at least that we didn't do it. We're just taking their data.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's a really good idea to note where you're getting your georeferences if you've copied them. And someone put a note in the chat about a way of copying coordinates from other collections, and I neglected to show this, but if you go into the occurrence editor and you're georeferencing, this other little button here, this C button, is the coordinate cloning tool. And this searches either within your collection or within all collections in the portal, and it looks for this string, aka subset of text. And in other collections, in other locality information, and it will give you a map. I didn't find any, but it would give you a map of all of the georeferences that have been made that have that locality. And then you can select one of those dots and then pull it into your collection. So that's a little shortcut. One of the videos in that georeferencing training course is shortcuts to georeferencing in a CCH2 or a Symbiota portal. And it talks about using the duplicates matching tool and the coordinate cloning tool and the formatting tools for quicker georeferencing. Brad, you've been ever so patient.
Well, that's all right. Thank you. Has there been any talk of, it seems like lat long or georeference, events or it needs to be like determinations where there's like multiple, because
Mm-hmm.
you'll get one and you'll want to correct it, but then you just have to overwrite the data that was there. If,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone's thought of that, but it seems like, is that overkill? Would that be useful to people? It seems like we run across it enough where you're like, oh, this is that lat long on the label is actually wrong, so we fixed it, but then
Mm-hmm.
you just overwrite it and you look at the label and this doesn't match and
Yeah, I have definitely heard of people wanting to do that. But then it does complicate your data usage downstream. Like, is someone who downloads the data gonna know what to do with multiple georeferences? Like, at some point, they're gonna have to use one.
well, yeah, I mean, I would
Um,
imagine it would be
but
like prior determinations, right? Where like
yeah,
you would just have the active one, but then can see what has happened in the past.
for sure. Yeah, and I think that is a good idea. It doesn't work in our data model currently, but it's I know it doesn't work in some data models. Like some people have a separate table for their georeferences of their locations. Ours does not. Chilla.
Yes, I had a question about the location ID.
Hmm.
Um, can everybody see that and use that like when you set it up? So for example, I'm dealing with processing um information about a plot, like for a thesis.
Hmm.
And actually we're setting up vegetation plots so that we can revisit that same spot every single year, and it can be for vascular plants, bryophytes, or lichens. And so I was trying to come up with a descriptive code for it, but then I'm thinking, well, if it's only at USCH, can other people then see it if she sends out duplicates to other, or people send out duplicates to other institutions? If they put in the location code, will it automatically pull up what we've entered into USCH?
I don't remember, honestly.
Okay.
I think that this was developed for potentially Neon, and I'm less familiar with some of the tools and workflows that Neon does. But I would just test it out. I know it does come out in the export, so you'd at least be able to like export import data, but I don't remember whether like duplicates and such will import that data.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it is over the hour. Excellent discussion. Thanks all for your questions and comments. We appreciate all your input, and there was plenty more things we could have talked about, but I think these are some great starters. So, oh, and I did notice that Megan was like, "Can we get county outlines?" Yes, everyone's asking for those. We didn't have a mechanism for doing that, but we finally do. And so that's coming out. I'm not sure if it'll be 3.3. I think it'll probably be 3.4, but it might be 3.3. So stay tuned. Thanks, everyone. Bye.